So to start the session today, or this session here, many of you will have been in the AI Executive Summit that we've been running leading up to now. The session was with Joan Hertz and myself. Many of you are joining because you're interested in what the future and the business of AI is going to look like. We have these sessions every morning at 9:15 to kick off the morning and drive things forward. And so what we wanted to start the week with, we have like incredible practical pieces. We have deep dives in things like change management. And what we wanted to kick off this the week with in this session was something to be able to expand your mind a little bit. And I'm very excited to have both two of my board members, but two of my good friends join us and give us a little bit of a we're gonna expand everybody's brain about possibilities this morning. And so I don't like having everybody's bios read, so I'll just say Patrick Pilarski, fellow at Amy, led the lab at DeepMind here in Edmonton. Jerry Sinclair, CIO and VP of Innovation at the Vancouver Airport. Extreme background in investing, entrepreneurship, developing technology. So we have a great panel to be able to lead this forward. And my first question for my two friends here is, what's the most interesting thing that you've done in AI recently?
Can you hear me? Am I on? Am I hot? Yeah, I'm hot. Okay, good. So actually yesterday, I'm taking my granddaughter to Greece and Europe, Greece and Turkey for 3 weeks. And so I've kind of been using AI to help me with the itinerary with mixed results. Not bad, but not mixed. I'm still much better at figuring things out. But I've been playing around with ChatGPT 4.0, especially the vision and the audio capabilities. So I had been trying to figure out the order of the itinerary, and I'd scrawled things down in a very rough way on a piece of paper, 2 pieces of paper in a notebook, and they were not in any coherent order, lots of crosses out, and I took a photo of it, sent it to ChatGPT 4.0, and I said, read this and put this document in an order with the dates in the right order and all the hotels and the places, and then find me the addresses and telephone numbers of all the hotels. And bloody hell it did. So that's pretty cool, right? I mean, it was a really messy piece of handwriting too.
Wow, can you hear me as well?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, well, that's way cooler than mine, which was, hey, we're trying to find the right pho noodles when we're making like Vietnamese soup, and like trying to like debug that over the variations and the historical trajectories of different noodle craft. So I think yours is way cooler than mine, Jerry. I think we'll leave it at that.
But the other thing that happened, my son taught me how to use the action button on the side so that you can just press the action button and talk into directly to GPT 4.0, which is something that Patrick and I have always talked about, isn't it? Wouldn't it be great if you could just have a thought and then you get the answer? And you could talk about your earbud in a minute. So he taught me, so I've got it hooked up to my action button, which is great because as I'm walking down the street, I want to know something, I got the answer right away. Except the problem is that she, because it's her voice, is totally irrepressible and keeps coming on at the wrong time. And it happened this morning in the breakfast room. All of a sudden I heard somebody I thought was like ChatGPT talking, and I kept giving the guy beside me dirty looks because I thought he was showing off that he was coming to this conference. And I leaned over at him and I said, do you think you could turn her off? And he said, it's not me. And then I realized it was in my pocket. So that's the other side. Okay, enough about that. Let's talk about the future.
So Patrick, I mean, I feel like you're maybe sandbagging a little bit. So tell us something that you find is maybe the most mind-blowing thing in your lab right now.
Yeah, I was gonna say I was gonna jump back in and actually give something live here. Some of you know this, some of you folks out there know it, but some probably don't. Our lab is doing some really transformative stuff with how humans and machines interact. So I think the coolest thing that we're doing is literally bolting AI-powered robots into the skeleton of the human body. So we're in fact like working with people who've lost limbs, putting the robotic devices directly into their skeleton, extending from their skeleton, and then using AI to essentially bridge the gap between the person and the technology that's now attached to their body in a essentially a hard-mounted way. I think that's pretty mind-blowing.
And so tell us a little bit more about, that's great. You've been doing this for a long time. a year, 2 years ago, Transformers and everything kind of blew everybody's mind. Is this something that you're starting to look at in your lab? Are you doing foundation models for limbs? What does this look like?
I will confess that I tried to get a undergraduate researcher to jump into the lab and just see if they could convince a transformer to pretend it was like the interface between a person and a bionic limb. They chickened out. So no, we haven't tried that
Not
one.
yet.
I still think that's a live option though. I really think you might be able just to sweet talk a large language model into believing it's a neuroprosthesis controller. But for now, no. We've been extending into deep neural networks quite a bit, but we've left out some of the foundation models for tight human machine bionic coupling.
That's pretty good, Cam. Limbs for LLMs for limbs. That's
Limbs?
not bad. That's not bad. But Patrick, the other thing that I find really exciting about your work is the two-way interaction between the human and the robot, and the robot. They both learn from each other. That is really what blows my mind about your work.
I think that's the big, this is where I see quite a bit of the value in this line of work, not just for, people interacting with biomedical technologies, but pretty much for every single human being on the planet, is that if you start to build, in fact, plug for my talk later on today, I'll be talking about exactly this, but the seamless, smooth coordination between two thinking machines is a really powerful amplifier. It's an amplifier of human capacity. And so if we can figure out how to reduce the friction of that interaction, like you were mentioning, where's the voice coming from in your pocket? Well, if that was directly dropped into some of your cortical tissue, would that be better? Might be better. Might be there all the time. Maybe you don't want that voice in your cortical tissue, but there are the bidirectional smooth communication between people and enhanced thinking machines is a really powerful way to amplify everything we do, not just particular kinds of acts of daily living.
So one of the things we were good panelists and met before the panel to chat about some of the things we wanted to talk about. And one of the interesting things that came up, which maybe you hit, maybe don't hit with artificial limbs, and I'd be curious about where you hit with the airport, is this idea of data lakes, of having priority data sets. Is this the advantage that people think it's going to be in business? Historically, it was, I have this specific data set. I can train a model that nobody else can train. Seems like some of that got wiped out with ChatGPT being a little bit more general than we expected these systems to be able to be. Where's the data advantage these days? What does that look like?
You go first, Patrick.
Sure, okay. I've been thinking a lot about this, and maybe some of you, like me, read William Gibson's Neuromancer, flying through cyberspace and seeing that giant pyramid, which is the Bank of America, thinking about these walled gardens of data. As I jump into that, I want to say, my colleague Bailey Caxmar, one of the Amy Fellows here, reminded me the other day as we were chatting that humans are really predictable. We are, of course, we're all unique and very special, but also the things we do every day, the way that we articulate, the way that we move through our lives has a lot of regularities to it. So I think as much as some of our private data islands that claim to capture human behavior are in fact unique in a sense, they're also just capturing the same regularities you can get out of other data islands. So when you start to juice the lemon, you're getting the same lemon juice. I think there are other data islands, though, where they either have depth to them, they have a longevity of provenance that are hard to extract, things that are not common patterns, uniqueness in the patterns that are being captured within the data set. So I think those are still privileged data islands. And I do think that there's certain data islands that come with trust behind them. Anyone can start to scrape the web. I think we're seeing lots of people right now scraping the web and trying to make product out of it. But I do think that there are companies and individuals with long-term trusted curation of data, and I think those still have extreme value because this is my wild speculation for everyone, is that when we start to see more and more specialized large models, those that are highly trusted and come with sort of community trust behind them as well are the ones that are going to carry unique value, say 5 years from now. And so I do think that some of those private data islands that are both have longevity, have a uniqueness in terms of what they capture about human and especially non-human behavior, and the networks that are connected to them. I think that's where we're going to see value.
I think I take a more holistic view of data than just in terms of private data islands, which I think are as far as this is a business audience, I think that is your competitive advantage, is really getting on top of what data do you have in the first place, and how can you not only manage it, but serve it up to models that can actually give you decision-making capabilities. And I think that we're pretty much as a Canadian entity, maybe as humans, we're pretty underinvested in that particular area of understanding the data we have. And so from my perspective, just having taken on this new role of the airport, I've been looking at the wide variety of data sources we have. And it blows my mind. I mean, there are 232 plus systems at the airport. Each one of them is a source of some data or other. And when you start to think about the HVAC systems, or you think about the baggage handling systems, or you're thinking about the Oracle financial data systems, I mean, they're not talking to each other at all. Nobody has actually moved that. Never mind private data lakes. Nobody has actually figured out the bridge between all of these, again, siloed data sources, and then figuring out how do you get them in a format that is usable. And then the other big problem is, how do you display the data once you have it? Because we have this astounding digital twin that is. We'll talk about digital twins later, right? I'm not going to talk about that now, right? Okay.
Whenever you want.
but it gives you up to like a 3D model of every centimeter of the airport, accurate to three centimeters. But when do you actually need to see that kind of display? And then sometimes a simulation is what you need. Sometimes a BI dashboard is what you need. Sometimes, if you're a geek, all you need to see is the right numbers in whatever place you want. So I think that the big step is, get on top of your private data lakes. That is your oil and your value. But before you do that, figure out what you've got, how to get it in that data delta or lake or whatever the geographical formation you choose to put it in, and then figure out how to integrate it in the right format and serve it up. And that is not a simple feat.
Cam, I just want to follow up on one and say that I think there's another advantage. There's a predictive advantage to having a special view into the world by way of whatever data streams you have. Like I think about any of our large tech companies that can watch all of the bits flowing on all of the wires through all of the servers across the globe, like the protoverse of the world. To be able to have that bird's eye view in the protoverse is a substantial predictive advantage to be able to contextualize current events or current trends and then act it with the first mover advantage. So I think that's something like here in Alberta, we love continual learning, but just even the real-time flow of information and using learning as bolted on top of a continuous stream of data, not thinking about your reservoir of information as something that is checkpointed and then distilled down or boiled down, but to think of it in fact as a living, moving thing, and using that for the predictive advantage. I think that's something that is underexploited right now and can actually create a differentiated advantage.
And I would also add that it's, if you're looking at applications of AI in business, make sure you've got enough data scientists and engineers and data wranglers on your team, number one. Then the next big challenge is, it's not just your data. It's the data of your stakeholders and your partners, and getting them to part with it or share it is often very much a negotiation, conflict resolution. That's another huge skill that businesses need in terms of how do you actually collaborate with your partners. So how do from the airport perspective, how do we share data that we have with Air Canada, with WestJet, with NavCan, with Transport Canada, and more importantly, from our perspective, how on earth are we going to get them to agree to share their data with us?
So I want to dig in on that a little bit more. Just quickly before, though, I always love our conversations. But Patrick, what's the protoverse for those of us who haven't been to the protoverse yet?
Oh, it's the next big thing, Cam. It is the next big thing. If you can think about the data packets that are flowing, they contain a lot of information. They contain meta information. They are essentially the not just the bits and the wires, but all of the wrappers around them and the contextualization. So essentially, just think of it as like the living, breathing pulse of the internet.
Awesome. All right.
Can I have a T-shirt?
Living in the protoverse. So the partnering on data piece is really interesting. How do you think about that kind of exchange of value back and forth? And how could businesses be thinking about that? Because I mean, if somebody came up and said, "Well, give me the airport's data," you'd be like, "Well, I don't know about that, Cav. No data for you." Like, how do you think about like, what value would the airport want to be able to have that data shared out? And how could businesses be thinking about this exchange of value when it comes to the exchange of data as well? Jerry.
Well, it's been something I've been working on for I don't know at least the last 5 years. When I was innovation commissioner, I was trying to build these ecosystems of stakeholders to get them to share data for common value. And I couldn't budget. Everybody agrees. Yes, we must share data. It makes sense. But then when you start to get on top of the data governance and access rights and who's getting what, suddenly we all become extremely, proprietary, and we think our data is much more valuable than anybody else's. And what's the deal? And talks break down. It's inevitable. I think what's happening now, though, I'm seeing a slow sea change, and that is because the data visualization is getting so much better that if you can create a situation where you can show the different stakeholders how their data works within the context of a whole ecosystem and where obstacles were before, you can see them and you can fix them, then there's that aha moment that breaks down the barriers, I think. So therefore, you really need to be modeling and simulating and presenting that information, I think, back to your stakeholders. It's a tough sell.
Jerry, I'd love your thoughts on this because I have recently been thinking a lot about, especially with respect to like cyberware, neurotech, sort of what it means to have a federated approach to sharing the things that are precious to you. Imagine like Cam's got a bionic limb, I've got a bionic limb, you've got a really cool cortical implant. We're all like, oh, hey, wouldn't our limbs and cortical implants work so much better if we just shared our data? I think we probably agree that when things become very private or very intimate to ourselves, like part of our body, that we want to have autonomy over that. We want to have control over that system, the data that is exported from it, and also the models that are imported into it that govern how it essentially acts and works with us. So we all might sit down and say, hey, yeah, let's agree to share. We trust each other. We're friends. Let's figure out how to figure out when we share and combine that and when we don't. So like that's just the I want my limb to talk to your limb situation. But do you see this extending to the bigger picture? Like, is there a federated, self-autonomous approach that really does scale to the business world?
Well, Patrick, I think it's the same about who do you tell secrets to. Do you tell secrets to your partner? It's all about trust. Yeah. Okay, so therefore, I think there is a federated, individual, trusted sharing pool that you could do that with. But the more something increases in value, the more proprietary we become and the more distrustful we become of somebody wanting it. So here's an example, and this was maybe 10 years ago. I was working with the BC government that was trying to, those identity cards. BC, I don't know if Alberta has it, but we have our health record on our driver's license, which everybody was really worried about data breaches and privacy. And we did a bunch of focus groups, and I was leading a set of them, and the questions were around under which conditions would you share the personal data of yourself, the health data of yourself and your family. And people were quite suspicious in general situations, worried about insurance companies, worried about the government and Big Brother watching them. However, when there is a threat to the health of an individual or a family member, then you can have everything. There was this willingness to share, and I think that's what it's going to be like going forward too. When the risks when the rewards outweigh the risks, then I think we'll have better data sharing.
So let's dive. You mentioned digital twins earlier, and I know it's an area that you're really excited about. I think it's digital twins is a very specific thing in engineering, and we start to suitcase the term a little bit. But this idea that we're going to be able to model the world, predict out, be able to run multiple simulations on how the world, on how a specific thing could move forward, is really powerful, and it's a really powerful combination with the kind of rise of generative AI and the rise of interfaces like text and voice to be able to query a system like that. Talk to us a little bit about how you're thinking about how digital twins could be beneficial at the airport, where you could see maybe the most impact of them, and then Patrick, I'd love to hear like thoughts on digital twins in the artificial limb world.
Yeah, well, digital twin is a really hyped up term, and for my engineering friends, they're saying, "Ho hum!" I mean, we've had digital twins for years, but when you see the model that the Vancouver airport has produced, and it came out of COVID, by the way. As you know, everything shut down during COVID, and our CEO thought, well, what a great time to bring in the helicopters and the drones and scoop up by video every inch of the airport. And so that's how, and we did it on a game engine, Unity, by the way. So it is very realistic. It is very powerful, and I think it's most powerful. And this is sort of blasphemy and within the context of my colleagues, but I think it's great because it's so impressive and it blows people away. Is that, especially when you show the airfield and you show all the little planes there and you show where they're coming from, and then you think, this is a real model of the world, and then you can put it on your phone, and people's minds, it's a paradigm shift visually. But for me, something as simple as a well done simulation showing people moving through customs and how fast they can move if you put different kiosks in a different place is just as powerful as the digital twin if you can use it in a predictive way, if you can use it in a prescriptive way. And so so I think, again, I want to go back to the whole point about the digital twin in our particular case is this absolute, you should see it, by the way, this compelling 3D model inside and outside of the airport. But that might be the pinnacle, but pretty soon we'll have immersive virtual twins, and then we're going to have them in our glasses, and then we'll have them when Patrick commercializes his stuff. We'll have them as implants. But the twin is a really good metaphor for the ability to create a digital representation of the physical world, and you can be as granular as you want. You can go way down to the subatomic level. You can go up to the universe. But I think the term protoverse is a much better term than, I was using the word dataverse for a while, but then I found out Microsoft already had it. So protoverse seems like a really good word. Pat.
Everybody's doing a whois lookup on protoverse.ai, protoverse.com,
That's right, exactly.
Proverse. Patrick.
We can have this great protoverse where we float around as like blocky avatars with no legs. Anyway, Jerry, I think maybe you've just convinced me I should stop life here as an Amy Fellow. I'll come to the airport. I have Unity dev experience. I love making shaders. It's one of my guilty pleasures. I'll make gracefully rolling water with good refraction.
How about if you just come and give us a lecture?
Okay, that'll work too.
Okay.
Yeah, Cam's like, don't you dare.
This battle's over.
This battle's over. But so it's really interesting because I think when we talk about things like a digital twin, we think about creating something that is accurate and true to life. So Cam, I'm gonna dodge around the where does this work in prosthetics and just say, yeah, do I want to Tony Stark things up and be like, give me 5 versions of a limb, okay, make it 5% faster, yeah, okay, subsample that, give me 3 more that are even better, and then like get something and say print, go, and then have it come in carbon fiber in 5 minutes? Yeah, of course I want that. But
can you do that now?
No.
No.
Close. But I think from a business standpoint, I think the interesting thing for me about digital twins is that you can in fact embrace broken twins as opposed to trying to create something that's down to like sub-millimeter accuracy. Cam, you're familiar with this from all the work we do on predictions in AI, where you're often like trying to build something on an imperfect model. I think the interesting thing for me about digital twins in terms of governance and strategic decision making is that you can in fact use them in broken form. Like you can embrace the wrongness of some of the current generative models to find unknown unknowns. You can start to see, like you're mentioning rollouts, if you have a perfect model in the engineering sense, you can roll out into the future and see the perfect outcomes based on a perfect physics world from your current assumptions, which might be really accurate. But we know that we are also not viewing the whole picture. And so by embracing a cohort of broken models and then looking at them, you can not only start to see those potential black swan events that you didn't see coming, like if you're thinking about from a governance standpoint, thinking about the potential things that might break in the worst case or in the unexpected case, you can also start to see, like I think you and I have both used generative AI in chatbots and things to find unexpected value. You can also start to use some of those broken models to get your thinking to a place where you can see an area for value creation you might have had before. So as opposed to I'm not saying a perfect digital twin is a wrong thing. It's great to have one, but embracing broken models, broken predictive models, and then rolling them forward also has value. And I think we underestimate the value of those, and then we're underestimating, in fact, the value of our current generative AI landscape.
That's really interesting. You're using the term broken. It's kind of like
Deliberately.
I know. It's making me think. It's kind of like, are fraternal twins broken?
Right?
Are fraternal twins broken? Answer my question.
No.
They're part of the plan, right? But
I mean, of course, but
no. But I'm just thinking. The fact is, we have identical twins in nature. We have fraternal twins. We have triplets.
Yep.
And they're all different.
Yep.
And we can learn a lot by rolling back the genetic code, right?
Yep.
That's all I was saying. Yeah.
And I think that's interesting as well, because I'm also a poet, that I choose my words very carefully. I use broken specifically in this context because I think there's a lot of heat being given to current generative AI models because they give silly answers, or they give you, like, I looked up one of my own papers and it gave an author list that had random people, and it was complete garbage. So I think a lot of people are saying the current systems are broken, and I think that we can embrace that and say, well, yeah, can we use something broken in a really functional way? Because I do think there's a lot of negative sentiment about the accuracy of even some of the more powerful current models.
Yeah, I'm a bit of a poet too, but not as but the point is, I prefer the word imperfect. It's not as poetic, but it
Fractured? Can I give you fractured?
Fractured. I mean, both of them have. It is broken, it's bad, it needs to be repaired. Well, maybe it does need to be repaired. I don't know, we were going to go
Laminated.
I think you better jump in here.
I was just actually going to hop off stage and let you two keep going. This is great.
Yeah.
One of the things that we talked about heading into this, and I think it works well, like you're both kind of attacking this from different angles, is a lot of the discussion around generative AI, around language models, have been about the dangers of access. Like, oh, now everybody has access to something that can create misinformation. Now everybody has access that can create, I don't know, whatever. The flip side that was really interesting, that when we were talking about this before, Patrick, that you brought up, is the DEI, the accessibility, the starting to be a leveling of opportunity for everyone to be able to get into AI, to be able to leverage AI. That's really started to change. And it's a different perspective on the same thing. Instead of seeing that as a negative, this is a huge positive that suddenly everybody has access to this tool and everybody can start getting going. Can you talk a little bit more about that and how it's maybe playing into how you're thinking about a field where accessibility is something you're thinking about day in and day out?
Yeah, thanks, Cam. I think this is the equity and access and inclusion aspect of our current sort of wave of generative AI. I'll use wave again, in that I think it is really important, because we do sometimes think, oh, well, it's like lowering the bar for bad actors to enter a space, as opposed to, in fact, raising the water level, so that all the boats, raising the water level so all the boats go up. Like, if we want to actually increase the ability for unique innovation to come out of our global mind population. Like, we have a lot of like wetware on the planet that's doing a lot of creative things. We have human minds, and I think that we do see huge disparities in access to education, customization of that education, and then the ability to leverage prior training to do unique things. So I think this actually is a really, like, being able to create technologies that allow people to optimize their learning for themselves. Like, think of a neurodiverse population where there might be many different methods of learning that need to be applied for different individuals who have different learning needs. Those people can now optimize and excel based on the exact learning strategies that they might most respond to, and be able to generate value in ways we couldn't see before. So I think that there is a really interesting an interesting pathway there. I will also say that I've said this quite a bit to educators when I go and talk to, say, our K-12 educators or even post-secondary, that I am expecting, this is maybe part of one of your future questions, but I'm expecting that looking forward, that the pathways from training and learning to excellence to deployment within industry, that pathway is going to change and going to be much more bifurcated than ever was. Sorry to all of the university administrators that are probably sitting out there somewhere, like the standard, hey, let's go through K to 12, let's go to high school, let's go to university, and then maybe after 7 or 8 post-secondary degrees or whatever the bar is now, you'll go out and start contributing. I think we're going to see many, many diverse pathways taking unique circumstances and training and deploying for unique particular areas of value within industry and society writ large. So the pathways from training to utilization are going to change, and they're going to branch heavily. And I think like part of that like increasing equity and inclusion aspect is that people who are coming from any different background, socioeconomic status, different language considerations, different operating systems. Like we all run slight variants of our operating systems, and
They're
look
broken.
across. Yeah, they're all pretty much, they're all full of bugs. And so I think that is going to change a lot, and it will help to leverage our shared computronium, because there's only so much of it on the planet, and we need to use it to the best affordances for society.
And just so we're clear, computronium is not an actual biological term. This is a Patrick term.
No, it's actually from the novel Accelerando.
Okay. Add that to the protoverse.
Well, I have about 20,000 different thoughts on everything you said, Patrick, and I don't even know where to begin. So, I mean, I guess I've spent the better part of 30 years working in the whole area of technology and trying to make technology more accessible to more people. And starting off teaching it at Simon Fraser in education, and then moving on to my own company. And so that's the most powerful thing I think of generative AI, and what gets me most excited about it, and the general democratization of access is there's a lot to celebrate there, and yet it's the thing that terrifies me the most. So I think I'm getting used to being both exhilarated and terrified at the same time all the time, and that's I don't think that's very healthy. But I mean I tend to be going from wow, look at this, look what this can do, to oh my God, you know what this means. And it means both the potential is absolutely mind-blowingly wonderful when you start to think about how, I mean, I do believe that on the path we're going so much more quickly than we think, we do have the potential to deal with the greatest problems that humanity has faced. And I think we're going to see huge breakthroughs in climate technology and personalized medicine. And I mean, the work that Patrick is doing is from the future, but it's right now. We're going to see, you know, we're space travel. I mean, all this stuff that we've been talking about that's been sci-fi, and all of the problems that we have thought about we have now the potential to find solutions. At the same time, we have the potential to actually exacerbate all of the threats we face. So everything that you can think about in terms of global warfare and cyber warfare and biological warfare and every kind of warfare that you can imagine it has the opportunity to get a lot worse through these technologies. And so it's very hard to just look at one side, and it drives me crazy when people want you to say this or that when it's so obviously both.
Cam, I was going to respond as well. I think that I agree, and I like to think about the technologies we are building, the advent of tools that can adapt, thinking machines that we can craft. We can craft tools with the hallmarks of intelligence baked into them. It's an amplifier. This is whenever I go give talks, I talk about intelligence amplification. Mm-hmm. It's an amplifier. It's amplifying the various things we do. And so those are good things, those are bad things. I think one aspect of that amplification that's actually quite relevant to business is that the other speculation I have for the coming months is not like, oh wow, something big and disastrous in terms of like geopolitics or bad actors. It's that there's going to be unexpected and unprecedented inversion in knowledge and power dynamics within the workplace. So people are going to be able to specialize and optimize. We can't have like, I'm a junior widget maker, now I'm a really good widget maker. I'm the boss of the widget makers. I'm the board of directors that like governs the widget making company. Like we won't start like the knowledge hierarchy that we've seen for many thousands of years in terms of people working with each other is going to have inversions within it in unexpected places where in fact knowledge and power dynamics are going to be disconnected from expectations, and that's going to be, I think, a tumultuous time for society, but especially for business, where we start to see the way businesses work changing fundamentally.
Yeah, and I think it's really important to say that if I have any advice to give to both parents and to and to people in business is automation is coming big time. Jobs are going to be replaced big time. You won't even need the graduated levels of widget makers because the machines will do it all, including being on the board of directors. So our only tools are to really get on top. I mean, understand, grow with the AI, learn how to use them, because it's much harder to replace somebody who knows how to use those tools than somebody who has their head buried in the sand. So that's one thing. The other thing that I was going to say, because it's just a new thought that I wanted to try on you, and that is what I was just ruminating on this morning as I was walking over here. The breakthroughs we've seen lately in artificial intelligence, but it's been a slow burn as far as improvements in the general level of intelligence of machines and humans as well. And so as we and our machines are getting smarter, I also notice that we're also getting stupider. Like in terms of if you look at the geopolitical situation, and you look at the polarization that's going on in the world, even among families and friends, there seems to me that as the intellectual quotient is rising, there's also this emotional quotient that is pulling us down to our more primal roots. Do you think they're related?
Ooh, that's fun. And we could spend another hour. Cam, I think we have 15 minutes left though, so we can't spend an hour on that.
Just a
yeah,
second.
no,
So, yeah.
It's a funny sort of bimodal application of our advanced technologies. One is that it's creating potentially better interface languages, better ways for us to actually align ourselves, for human alignment. Like we have the tools in front of us that are allowing us to generate better shared interfaces to communicate the things that actually matter. At the same time, those exact same tools are also then creating divisionary pressures, I think, because they can also allow us to radically disrupt the interfaces we have with others and enjoy the novelty of that. So I think that's I'm usually the team optimist, as you know. That's why they keep me around. But I do think that's the interesting part of what you just said, is that there's many interesting parts of that actually. But one of the interesting parts of what you just said is that in fact we are both applying and misapplying a possible universal glue that brings us together, because maybe it feels good to misapply it.
Well, there's also this anti-intellectualism, the wave that's rising in the States and in Canada too, against elitism, against the educated, against the left-leaning elites, I guess. And I think that is also bringing our attention to the gap between the haves and the have-nots, and my recommendation for all of us to continue to work with AI and understand AI and use these tools is only going to widen that gap between those of us who use it and those of us who don't. So in some ways, while these tools provide greater accessibility, it provides greater accessibility to those people who can access them, and theoretically, yes. They're now available to all of us. There's still huge gaps in terms of accessibility from a social economic perspective.
And this is, I think there's another opportunity here, not just the who gets into Vault 1 and who gets into Vault 32, but I mean, it's more there's an actual opportunity to create the most, this is just a challenge to everyone, to create the most accessible cognitive amplifier that by default is the one that people go to. Like if we think about like of all the possible models that are floating around, we have an ecosystem of AI models which everyone is starting to adopt. If we can create a very accessible version of that is the go-to for everyone, that in fact has some of the coordination smoothers that might be very positive for bringing people together, then maybe you have a maybe just that is the creating the gut flora of the of the large model and the AI model ecosystem is in fact the thing that helps to sort of
So
bring people back in.
Just let me, no, I have to say one more thing, because I love to hang out with Patrick, because I'm always depressed and he always brings me back to optimism. Well, we do have this device right here. There's your interface right wherever it
it's on
is.
my wrist,
Yes,
it's on my
exactly.
wrist, nice.
Okay, but
Not
there,
yet in my hand.
but there it is. Just put it
Yep.
in there and it'll be the most accessible, right? Yeah, sorry.
no, it's all. So yeah, terrified and optimistic at the same time.
Exhilarated,
And
yeah.
exhilarated. This is also how I feel like watching the Oilers play hockey right now. Both of those things at once.
Try being a Canucks fan.
Yeah, sorry.
That's sorry.
So in our kind of last 10 minutes here, what I'd like to dig into a little bit is let's talk about the optimistic side of this. Let's talk about, so in the next, I like talking to both of you because I feel like both of you are living a little bit farther into the future than myself or most other folks. So what's something that's 2-3 years out that people should be thinking about right now? And I realize it's always tough to make these predictions because 2 years before ChatGPT, you probably weren't predicting ChatGPT unless you were Dale. What's a couple years out, not even as a technology, but as a concept that we should be thinking about on the exhilarating side?
On the exhilarating
Yeah,
side,
not people getting dumber.
No, listen, okay, I do want to lean into that actually, because I think the thing that we already talked about, the thing I think I'm most excited about, which is a radical transformation in how people are educated. Now, I didn't say the education system because, as we know, like universities, for instance, are very deliberately slow-moving, lumbering integrators that take many years to move them by design. They're sort of reservoirs and they're backups for civilizational knowledge and ways of working. But I do think that the thing that's 2 to 3 years out is just the people being able to reach out and grab education. Now that's both exciting and scary, but I do think there's huge potential there, and it's going to come faster than we expect. Whether or not, like, kids not just sitting there playing Fortnite in their room, they're going to be learning and working with systems that are giving them knowledge that was previously impossible to acquire at such a rate and at such speed, and be able to act on that knowledge quickly. So whether or not that's scary or exhilarating or terrifying or exciting, I do think that transformative change in the way that we educate and the way we think about education is going to happen. This is sort of like the Neil Stephenson's Diamond Age. Yeah, we're going to have a primer, but it is a very disruptive thing, and I think that's coming faster than we expect. And I'm personally very excited for what that might enable at a societal level.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know how to answer this question, Cam. I'm kind of a near-term futurist, so I think the things that we're seeing right now are pretty much in the future, and they're going to be here. We're seeing incremental improvements on all kinds of technologies that, in terms of pharmacological breakthroughs and new drug therapies, and education is becoming much more accessible and personalized as well. And I don't know if you folks have seen the new tutoring technologies that are coming out just from large language models. They're here right now. It's not even the future. So I think the future I see is people actually making use of some of the things that are here right now, and they are blowing my mind. I guess one of the thing I think about a year and a half ago, Patrick and I invented this kind of this.
It's like, shh.
Oh yeah, we were going to commercialize it.
Oh no, not our secret business plan, Jim.
We were going to commercialize it. It was a memory device, a memory aid, I guess it was, where it. Can you guys hear the clapping?
That was for you, Jerry. That was for the memory aid.
Oh, okay, all right.
Standing ovation from the stage.
the pieces of it are already there. Where McLuhan said it years ago, our great Canadian, that really technology is just an outering of human capacity, and so the sword or the pen or the outering of the hand, and the wheel and the bicycle is the outering of the foot, and of course all of our AIs are outerings of our brain, and we can see them out there, and we can use them. So Patrick and I have talked about devices, inspired of course by William Gibson's Neuromancer and the implants and all of that kind of stuff. And he's also the implant man. So I'm always trying to get him to make implants, like cognitive implants, that could become memory amplifiers. And I don't think that's that far off, personally.
And what's really exciting about this too is that we are seeing changes, like you said, in medicine. Human longevity is something that people are pursuing quite actively. The thing that we are now trying to think about very, very concretely, I think, is how we keep that computronium in solid shape as we rapidly extend our lifespans. And so there are great opportunities, I think, for some of these technologies that are able to help us to better preserve and maintain and extend that computronium in all sorts of ways, outering it. I'll jump to DC Engelbart, actually, inventor of the computer mouse. And it's like humans using language and artifacts and methods in which they are trained. Well, we've got a heck of a lot new methods and artifacts. We're developing new languages, and we're lacking the training aspect of the HLAM-T model of Engelbart. And so I think that's where we're going to start to see, humans starting to be able to train themselves in the use of a memory prosthesis. That's going to create transformative change, and there's opportunities as well for cultivating that process by which people are trained to use these new languages, artifacts, and methods.
All right, last, I think we're heading into the home stretch here. Last question. So if you're, let's take it like two maybe extreme ends. So you're a startup and you're a large company. What do each of those groups need to be thinking about over the next, whether near-term future or slightly long-term future? What do they need to be thinking about to both, gain competitiveness or become more competitive, or build a competitive moat right now? What do startups need to be thinking about? What do large companies need to be thinking about? Maybe it's the same.
I think it's the same thing they've always had to think about. And it all starts with your team and talent and the human element. And I mean, the question I should have asked you to ask us is, what do you think that AI will never replace? And that I don't even know what the answer is. I'm curious to hear what we would have to say about that. But at any rate, though, you have to start with talent, and in terms of a startup, having the right talent on your early team is absolutely crucial. You still need the business acumen. You still need the deep technology. You still need all of those things, and you need to have someone who really understands how these technologies are changing and how you could rapidly adapt them to your particular business model. And of course, you have to have a really good business idea. And from the large company, you need to be thinking about growing your talent base. And I forgot to tell you, I started up an AI squad at the airport. That was one of the first things I did. I think that every business should have an AI squad where people who are already playing at the edges, or might even in the belly of the beast of AI, can share what they're doing, and the whole enterprise can grow together. And if this is the last few minutes, I better turn over to Patrick for the rest.
Cool.
So after all this talk about technology, it ultimately loops back to people.
Yep.
I love it.
But this is really important. I think this is in fact critical. Is that we've talked over and over again throughout this session, in fact, and I've said it mostly because it's the drum I beat, is that it's an amplifier. AI is an amplifier of the talent that you have. Like, people, when you asked me 5 years ago, like, when are we going to have super intelligence? I usually said tomorrow. And the day after, and the day after. The smartest thing on the planet is going to be us, amplified by the technology that we have right now. Our talent is going to be amplified by the technology that we have. And so finding that talent and looking for new ways to access talent, going back to the inclusion and equity point of view, like, what's some of the unique talent that you're going to be looking for in the future? I think that's the thing that I would encourage both startups and also enterprise entities to be looking towards, is what are the talent pipelines look like in the future? The other is that the waves in the ocean are starting to get really choppy and things move fast. The settings are changing quickly. So I think, especially for enterprise colleagues, thinking about the risk appetite of the organization, and also thinking about not just like, hey, let's do some sensitivity analyses, but really thinking about a cloud of possibilities for the future as opposed to trying to nail down one or two, I think is going to be really important. Like, so thinking about risk appetite with respect to the rapidly changing wheels of fortune on King Lear's wheel, flipping over and over.
Love it. Okay, really last rapid fire. One not ChatGPT tool that you love right now that everybody should be trying.
You mean one non-LLM or one non-OpenAI?
You can't say OpenAI or Gemini.
Oh, okay. This is the same one that Patrick taught me about. It's the Arena. It's chat.lm.sys.org, and you can pose a question, and then two of the LLMs out of about 45 compete, and you choose one. But they just disempowered it last week, by the way. So you can only so when you find, and all of them are there and they're all free, and when you find one of the ones that you really like, you used to be able to keep asking the same questions and keep going with it for several hours, which I would do, but now they make you regenerate a new search with a new group. But anyhow, that's the best. What about you?
Well, that you just took the one I was going to take. So I'm going to say that the little the AI chips that are inside my 3D printer that tell me when my additive manufacturing build has failed, those things have saved me so much time and effort. Like that is like they get my like gold star of like AI being applied to something I care about. When it's like you have a spaghetti failure, and I see it appear in my watch, I can go upstairs and like restart my 3D print. So my kid's like Mario chess set is going to.
That's not your fa.
No,
spaghetti.
Not the pho noodles. I know, different spaghetti failure, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's all noodles. Okay, well, thank you both so much. Thank you to our audience for taking part in the session this morning. This is just a kickoff to the week. Again, I hope it pushed everybody's brains in a little bit different directions than what they had thought about before. Maybe introduce something to be able to have conversations with some of your colleagues around you this week. Every morning, like I said, at 9:15, we have a different session. We have Steph and Mara talking about AI tools around ethics and data governance. Tomorrow, we have Dion Nicholas from Forethought, founded a company called Forethought, based out of the Bay Area. They've raised hundreds of millions of dollars to drive forward AI for customer experience. So great chance to be able to dive into how AI and generative AI specifically is driving forward opportunities in customer experience. And then at the end of the week, we have Dan Simmons from ATB talking about change management and how to empower people and teams in all of this. So lots of great sessions. If you're interested, there's just a ton of things this week. Check out Jack's session later, who was one of our awesome alumni who founded Clio. Dive in deep into some of the breakout sessions during the week, and ultimately the biggest thing I'd say for this week is get to know the people around you. You're gonna have people from nearly every walk of life who's looking at this from, hey, I just learned to spell AI, through to I'm pushing forward the frontiers of it. And the opportunity to have those conversations is really what I think makes this week special. And I'm excited. I'm grateful for you two to have kicked off conversations like that this week. And so maybe a big round of applause for our two panelists.